Cities on the Move. Tonight we're talking about Google and their Google Fiber for Communities initiative. In our region, Mason City, Iowa and Austin, Minnesota have decided to apply for this nationwide opportunity. Tonight, members of the community team from Austin, Minnesota are joining us to talk about what this is all about and how life might change with increased bandwidth. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Stay tuned for an informative and engaging discussion coming up. Cities on the Move. Tonight we'll learn about Google's Fiber for Communities project. This innovative project has the potential to radically change how Americans use and access the internet. Please welcome our guests: Vicki Spyhalski, Gail Dennison, Sandy Forstner, Mark Voppel, Bill Dowden, and Sean Riley. Thanks to all of you for being here. You all have specialties in the area of technology and community, and I appreciate you taking the time to come this evening. We'd also like to welcome members of our at-home audience to join us at any time to ask a question or make a comment. Please call the number that appears on your screen. Well, let's start with some basic definitions to help folks that may not be as techy as some of the rest of you, help them understand what this is all about. So can someone give us a general description of what's the status of broadband in the United States today?
Sure, I can actually cover that part. The internet that exists throughout the United States today is kind of a smattering of different speeds and variables. In our region, we have a lot of folks that have broadband, but we have even more folks that actually have dial-up. So the difference in dial-up to broadband, you're kind of watching a snail crawl across the table versus watching a cat or dog walk across the table. Not a huge difference in the sense of Google, but a huge difference in what you're doing today in the little critter versus the big one. In the sense of Google, what they're looking at bringing on is bringing in this new system that is massively faster and massively larger than anything that exists in the United States for the common citizen today. And if you take the snail versus the puppy, and now we're talking about going from a snail to a puppy to a jet car. You're going to something that is over 100 times faster than what exists anywhere in the United States today.
Wow, that's a big change.
Very big change.
Now, often education has been a leader in, moving from dial-up to high speed, to kind of at the forefront of this. Give us a sense of what the education community is currently able to access at this point.
Right now, we have 100 megabit service to our college, and internally we have fairly good internet connection. What this will allow us to do is allow our students who are out in the community to have internet connections 10 times faster than what we currently have at the college itself. So what this will do is allow our students to access the same level of service, and it will allow us to push material to our students and to interact with our students from home. So it will really help grow our online abilities, which we know is giving access to everybody in the community.
Okay. Mark, what's a megabit, a gigabit? Give us some basics.
It's really a description around how much data can move across a certain amount. Think of it as like a pipeline, okay? And megabits or gigabits is the amount of volume that can move through that pipeline. So as Sean mentioned, this Google effort is really looking at not only expanding the volume of that pipeline, but also the flow of how quickly it can move through that pipeline, driving greater increased capabilities both on the amount of data as well as the speed of the data that can be transmitted.
Okay. I am presuming that Google, I'm not knowing their decision-making process, but this is a result of the FCC was directed by to report to Congress and say we need a national broadband plan. Can any of you give us kind of a bite-size, I realize that plan is huge, but can you give us a bite-sized picture of what that plan said that the government thinks we ought to have in terms of services for broadband?
the government has taken on the internet in very much the same way that they've taken on television, where we've all moved from analog television to digital television over the last 2 years. They're looking at the internet and saying that this is an essential service for everyone across the United States. So very much like power and water and things from the 1920s, 30s has moved through time. Today, what the government's done is they're offering incentives for companies to create these new experimental environments. And there is an FCC guideline at this point that they want everyone to be able to be at 10 megabit by 2020. So you've got a fair amount of time out, 10 years now, to be able to get us up to what is somewhat decent speeds. There are companies, though, if you look at Google, IBM, HP, those companies that have taken this to the next level. They want to be able to be competitive in the marketplace, and they want to be able to really push their services and their products in the future, in that 10, 20 years in the future. So they're creating these new experimental environments, and these environments are much, much faster than what the FCC is targeting.
All right, very good. Let's actually take a look at what Google is proposing. Take a look.
Hi, I'm James Kelly. I'm a product manager on Google's infrastructure team. Today, we're announcing our plans to build and test ultra-high-speed broadband networks in the United States. We plan to provide fiber-to-the-home service with speeds up to 1 gigabit per second for at least 50,000 and potentially up to 500,000 people. In the selected locations, we'll offer internet connections up to 100 times faster than many Americans have access to today, and at competitive prices. We're doing this because we want to experiment with new ways to make the web better and faster for everyone, allowing applications that would be impossible today. We also want to try out new ways to build and operate fiber networks and share what we learn with the world. Finally, we're going to operate open access networks, meaning we'll share our network with other service providers, giving users more choice. We want to get started as quickly as possible, and we need to find the right community partners for it to succeed. If you're a state, county, or city official, you can express your interest in the project by answering some questions online at our project website. And if you're not a city official, you can still nominate your community. Working with the right community partners, we look forward to seeing what's possible. Please visit our website and get involved.
All right. Well, now Google is talking about 1 gigabit per second for these kind of experimental communities that they're taking a look at. Mark, I'm going to come back to you and ask you, you talked about capacity.
Sure.
Are we laying more fiber cables in the ground? Are we laying bigger cables? What does this mean?
So I think it would be a combination of a number of things, all of which you included. I think it's probably laying new fiber, but also it involves increasing the capacity through different technologies that you can, the amount of data you can put over a single fiber strand is driven by the technologies that sends the lights across that fiber strand.
Okay. And
so if you improve that technology, you can fit more across that same, through that same pipe. And so my guess would be that Google is proposing a combination of new fiber optic lines as well as better technology to drive data across those lines.
Okay. For those of you guys who are familiar with wireless versus this fiber optic in the ground, a lot of times you see, the community has put in these hot zones, or so you can go and get on your computer anywhere in the community, which has been great for the area. Is wireless really the future, and why are we still talking about burying things in the ground?
It's the ability of what each capacity can do. This is not going to take away the wireless capability. It's going to add to it. And what you're going to see is that the wireless capability even now is a little bit slower than you can get on a broadband connection. And so what you're doing is giving the people the ability to compute wherever they want to be. They don't have to be plugged into a wall. They don't have to be plugged in to a certain location. As long as they have a computer or a mobile device, they can get online. So the wireless internet's not going to go away, and what you're seeing is this is going to be an adjunct to it, and it's going to make it stronger because the base signal that comes to it is going to be a much more powerful signal. And one of the things that we've all talked about how you view this. This is the difference between walking somewhere and getting in a high-speed car. So going from 1 mile an hour of walking to a 100 mile an hour car, and how fast can you make that trip, and how fast can you do that connection, and what kind of information you can load in there during that time. And so what this is going to do is really add to our ability to move information back and forth, and that information is going to be a wide range of information, whether it's education, whether it's business, whether it's research or anything else. So what right now may take you 5 minutes to upload or download is literally going to move to seconds. And so it's just going to be really cool.
What a great segue to utilization, which we will talk about next. But I also want to share with you some of the feedback in the community, and that there's no question that people are excited about this potential opportunity. And here's what one supporter of the Google for Austin, Minnesota had to say online. We support Google Fiber in Austin, Minnesota. Google Fiber will allow us to do many great things. As a congregation, Google Fiber would allow both our church and our members the bandwidth needed to listen to our sermons or services online and possibly stream them in the future. Google Fiber would also give our church the bandwidth that would allow us to host our own web server, which would allow us to save money and save time with our website updates. Our site would become faster and more reliable with Google Fiber at our church and in our community. And that was from Michael Lindahl, a volunteer at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Austin. And so really, this is not just for techies, this is community-wide. So I want to talk a little bit about the practical applications of why would we want this in our community? And let's not talk so much about gigabytes anymore, but how can we use it? And Gail, I'm going to turn to you at the Institute and give us a sense of why this might be important for you.
The Hormel Institute is a cancer research center known around the world. It's one of the leading centers of cancer research, part of University of Minnesota, and partner with Mayo Clinic. We deal in that research with huge amounts of data. It's one of the reasons why we determined a year ago to acquire our own Blue Gene L supercomputer. We're one of the few research institutes in the world that have our own Blue Gene L. And the reason for that is because of the incredible amount of data that needs to get processed. And so with that, the Google application would be used to be able to send that information and communicate that to all of our partners around the world. We have partnerships in China, and a new one in South Korea. We are working on one in Saudi Arabia. We have partners with MD Anderson and all around the country, Notre Dame, and it just goes on and on. So for our cancer researchers, they need to be able to communicate. It was today when we were interviewing them, they use Google every day for a variety of things, for their own research so that they can transfer information to their partners around the world. So we really believe that it would be a unique environment for Google to have in a town like Austin or a small city like Austin. Very few cities in the United States are home of this size, are home to a Fortune 500 company such as Hormel Foods and a leading cancer research institute. So very unique capabilities for using what Google is offering.
Sandy, your business community has been supportive of this, and you are obviously involved as the leader of that organization at the Chamber. Tell us what this would mean to even some of the smaller businesses in the community. We've got Fortune 500, we've got science, but even the guy on Main Street can benefit from this. Tell us how.
I think it means increased opportunity, increased access, increased connectivity to the entire world. I think it'll enhance the quality of life for residents, connect them to their families, no matter where they live in the world, instantly and very personally, through video broadcasting over the internet. And business-wise, it will help those companies become more efficient wherever their employees might be. Gail mentioned Hormel Foods Corporation. They have employees throughout the United States. They'll be able to interact much more quickly, much more effectively, and I think that'll be a very positive thing. I think the other component of it is related to economic development growth. Suddenly, Austin would become the center of focus for all kinds of business activity related to the internet and related to businesses that see, a gig as important to their business. So that'll be very productive. Plus, we'll be the center of a national research study that's going to be shown throughout the internet all across the globe. So there's pluses, and more pluses. I don't understand the technical side real well, but I understand that a gig is big, and if we got Google in Austin, it would be huge.
It would be a big deal. Vicki?
Yeah. For Austin and for the surrounding area, this would be very significant just in terms of how we as people are communicating nowadays. There's kind of a new term called social media, which refers to kind of the emergence of blogs and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook that have had really quite explosive growth over the last few years. And to have more broadband available for these channels that people use very frequently would be wonderful for the users. And there was a study recently done that talked about how multi-screen usage is expanding rapidly in home. So people are watching TV and surfing on their computer or checking their Facebook status or tweeting all at the same time. And so that would give just the everyday person a lot more opportunity to do that.
Multitasking, perhaps a little too much.
It's the way things are, though.
Let's talk just briefly about, and this will be a technology question as well, high speed is great, gig is big. Give us a sense of how the internet works in that if we can all talk to one another. I mean, if Austin is this pilot project and we can all talk to one another at super high speeds and send huge files, does that translate to when Gale scientists want to transmit documents across the world? Can you get out, or is the pipeline still too small that connects us? What would make it special for the community of Austin to have this pilot project?
Well, to start with, I believe it would expand our ability to get out, because we do have limited capability right now for the amount of data that we can send out of Austin into the main internet trunk. Okay, so by expanding that, we clearly open up those capabilities. It would obviously be limited somewhat to what the capabilities of the internet are on the other end, but clearly, especially in larger cities and those types of things, they have the capacities that we're talking about, at least to move forward with some of this. But I also look at it as really the beginning, or putting the backbone in place, because someday, as you mentioned, the FCC, really this is a short-term project to say, where are we going in the future? And if we can get into this on the ground level, we'll be to the future before the rest of the country. And I think that provides a lot of opportunities for us. I think it provides opportunities because what Google's really hoping to understand out of this is, what are those applications that we don't know about today? We all kind of talk about the things we know about and what we want to do. The thing that's exciting to me is the things we don't know that we don't know, and what this can bring for that.
Great. I'm going to jump in just for a second so we can get to kind of the meat and bones of what the project is. But let's hear from another supporter of this Google project. And this includes Jeff Ettinger, who is CEO of Hormel Foods. And here's what he had to say. Austin has it all: a world-class cancer research center at the Hormel Institute, cutting-edge patient care at the Austin Medical Center branch of the Mayo Clinic, and a community college and education system involved in partnerships with the University of Minnesota, thanks to the science and technology focus of the Hormel Foundation. All of this in the background of a rural and agriculture-based county. We are unlike any community that calls the headquarters of a Fortune 500 company home. As a community, we're growing and we're changing, and that is why Austin, Minnesota is the perfect location for Google to test its Google Fiber ultra-high-speed broadband network. This community understands better than most the value of technology in connecting it to the rest of the world. I urge everyone with an interest in this community's continued economic growth to support the Google for Austin, Minnesota campaign. So lots of people very excited about this. So let's talk about kind of the requirements. All right, what is Google expecting from us? What do we have to do? And what do we know about the details of this project if a community in our region were to be awarded this pilot program?
Well, I think the first thing that Google's really looking for is community support. They're looking for the community that they're going to go into to really rally around this project. They don't want to go somewhere that's going to kind of hem and haw about it and lots of political problems. They want to be able to come in, deliver their product, and start their research very quickly. The other side that Google has stated they're looking for is really that diversity for those things that we don't know yet. So things like research, like advanced medical technology, like the social media connections, the small business entrepreneurs. They want those environments to really be able to grow and excel. And really the only thing that Google has so far said is their hard and fast thing is they want something, a community that is smaller than 500,000 people. And beyond that, everything is pretty much wide open. They're looking for all of these added features and added capacity that communities can bring to them.
All right. Well, they have made some recommendations in their comments to the federal government about the ways that they think this broadband plan should roll out, and one of them includes when they have major projects that are kind of ripping up the streets anyway, that you ought to lay some fiber down while you're doing that in preparation for expansion. Sandy, we're going to have a huge impact in the community when I-90 closes for some bridge replacement repair. Is there an opportunity at this juncture, or how's our timing on, is this something that we can take advantage of while those infrastructure changes are being made?
Well, I think we'll have to wait till Google will lay the fiber as they, announce their communities and set up their project. But getting to the what this does for a community, and why we're interested in, why really everybody in rural America should be interested in it, is for years we struggle with the urbanization of our country and our world, and this is an opportunity for a community such as Austin, which is relatively small, very much rural, and we think we have a pretty seamless system for them to install because we're publicly owned utilities here, but to serve as a model of how you can be anywhere in this country and connect to everyone in this world and be very successful. And when you're talking about the Hormel Institute and the Hormel Foods Corporation and Mayo, all those great examples on how they need to interact with the rest of the world, that's why we think we're a good model.
Do we have any sense, you said they're being a little bit vague about the details of it, but do we have any sense, the video mentioned cost, and they said affordable cost, but will there be some expectations that the communities do some fundraising to help support the installation of this fiber? I mean, if people are going to say, yes, I really want this to happen, it would be nice to know what they're supporting kind of from a details standpoint. What do we know?
Well, what we do know is that Google intends to come down to roughly 20 or so communities and then connect directly with those communities. Now, they haven't said anything about local fundraising. The scuttlebutt on the internet is they've got a couple $2 billion that's sitting in a bank for this project. Okay. So they may not need so much local fundraising, but the intention seems to be is they're going to bring this down to roughly 15 or 20 communities and work directly with those communities to see which ones are going to be their final 5. And right now, they've intentionally left that nebulous, I think, to give them that ability to do this however they want to do it. So.
But the one thing I think they have at least implied is that when they put this network in place, it won't be a closed network. In other words, right. It will be available for other entities to utilize this. So when they talk about affordable for families, it may be that they put the infrastructure in place, but there are others, company, SMIG or Quest or something like that may be utilizing the fiber and delivering the services. Google's expectation is that when they deliver those services, that it's affordable.
And the other part of that is also that Google wants to test this, so they need people to come on board with it. So having people come on board, coming into a community and saying, oh, by the way, we can give this to you, but it will now cost 10 times the amount, is really not going to give them what they want. So what they really want is to have people on board. And I think that that's what the social media is trying to prove to everybody, is that we have a community base. It's not just a couple of entities within the community saying yes, 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 but nobody in the community is interested in this. So what you're doing is we're using social media right now is to saying, hey, look, Austin is really open to you. We really want this, and we're supportive of it. Not on a very narrow base, but on a very broad base.
And we have a lot to offer.
Let me jump in for just a second, Vicki. We did get a call from Mary, who asked what the geographic spread of this campaign is on the local basis. Is it just the city of Austin proper? Is it Mower County? How far out would this reach?
I think the intention is that Austin is the one who's actually filling out the paperwork, but the communities that directly surround us are all going to be affected by this. And the reality of the technology is that if Google brings it to any community, regardless of Austin or anyone, that they are going to have to branch that out to many other communities around them. And that's just a necessity of how this functions technically. So it definitely, if you're seeing it in Austin, I live 10 miles north of town. I still have an Austin address, but close to Blooming Prairie, so I really hope Blooming Prairie is there too. But all of those communities within a 15 to 20 mile radius would almost have to be connected, and then the ones who are out there in that 30, 40 mile radius may be connected.
For the communities that are applying for this, I want to make sure you guys get a chance to share with viewers how they can help support this effort. How can they help their community convince Google that this is the place where they should have it? So Sandy, in 10 seconds, give us the pitch.
Well, we created a website, googleaustinmn.com. And on that website, you will find a number of ways to support it. You can post a message on Facebook. You can post a video on YouTube. Or you can simply click a nominate button that you would enter your name and contact information and the reasons why you think Google would be a good fit for our community.
All right. Excellent. Very good. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists for being here to enlighten us on this fascinating prospect for communities in our region. If you are interested in supporting your community's efforts, please contact your local officials. Thanks for joining us. Good night.